many of you, just shouted, how many of you recognize what that was? Yeah, the haka, yeah. And performed by the New Zealand All Blacks. Right now, the #1 ranked rugby squad. Obviously, you got a Kiwi. We got some Kiwi fans out here today. That's great. So let me give you some context for why I wanted you to see that. So let's go back to 2016. To June of 2016, I was boarding a plane at Dulles Airport. I'd been upgraded to first class on my way to China. I was pumped. I got a text from one of my brothers. By the way, I have 5 brothers and 5 sisters, so I come by my interest in group dynamics naturally. And it was a bit cryptic. There was a video embedded in the text, and at the bottom it said, "Are you kidding me? I can't believe they're making us do this." So I'm confused. I opened the text, touched the video, so I could get a sense of what was going on. And basically what you saw were 2 rows of 6 gentlemen, mostly wearing khakis and polo shirts, on a platform very much like this one. And they were doing this, and this, and this. Wasn't yet clear what to make of this, so I called him. So I said, "Mark, what's going on?" He said, "Well, I'm at an offsite. Company offsite in London. You know, the company I work for," he works for an industrial software company, "was acquired about a year ago. It's not going well. Sales are down, revenues are off. So," and I think this is how he said this, "some genius in higher management," I believe that's what he said, "decided what we needed to do was some team building to really turn this around." Yeah, it's kind of what I did. I laughed. I wanted to be empathetic, but I just couldn't help myself. How likely is it that that exercise of doing the haka for that group is likely to turn the business around? Not particularly likely. What I found unfortunate about that, by the way, I got that call at the time I was working on chapter 7 of the book. I've written about this. Went right into the book, the story went right into the book. I think organizations around the world spend, I would guess, based on numbers from Mars, tens of millions of dollars collectively on team building every year. Yeah? It's not unusual. Imagine walking into the offices of a large corporation or organization of any kind, for-profit, NGO, whatever. You might see on the walls framed posters of the rowers at sunset with the word teamwork across the top. Framed quotes from athletes and coaches extolling the value and virtue of teamwork. If you walk around, you might see on people's desks carved wooden blocks with their personality types on them. I'm an INFJ, what are you? You might even hear people talking about their latest team building adventure. You stick around a little longer, and you will notice, I think, 2 things, at least it's been my experience. One, you'll notice that most of the work is getting done by individuals. Talented, skilled, smart individuals, doing what they're supposed to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. The other thing you might notice, though, is the cynicism that grows up around this idea of teamwork. These are smart people. They see the posters on the wall. They get this disconnect between the spoken desire for teamwork and the fact that they're hired as individuals, paid as individuals, recognized as individuals, promoted as individuals. And that skepticism is unfortunate, because the potential and the promise of teamwork is very real, but somehow the way we're spending money on it is not effective. So in one 18-month period, I dug for the data on this. Mars is a very decentralized company. So it's hard to get the numbers. But with one boutique consulting firm based in New Jersey, for an 18-month period back around 2008, 2009, we were spending, get ready for this, over $400,000 a month on team effectiveness work. 7.5 million over the 18 months. And Mars is not alone in this. And so Mars came to me and said, "How can you help us? What can you do to help us deliver on the promise and potential of teamwork?" And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the research I did later, but I want to say that it started with this. Because I went back to my study, and I was scratching my head about this. How is it that, aren't we wired for teamwork? Aren't we wired, isn't there a neurological basis for collaboration? I mean, we've been doing it for millennia. And I actually called up an image just like this. There were hundreds of these cave paintings. And I sat and I meditated on it for a while. I want to guarantee you it wasn't all I did, but I want to talk about that journey for a minute. So if you look at this cave painting, you'll notice, first of all, there's risk involved here. These individuals are collaborating, but not without risk. Those animals are coming right at them. What you don't see here, because I've zoomed in, is the individuals behind these deer, or whatever they are, chasing them towards the individuals with the bows and arrows. But that's not necessarily a safe place to be. Why are they doing it? They're hungry. It's worth it, right? Look at the animals. It's not just hunger. There's meat there, right? There's meat to feed people, yourself and others. The hide, the fur that can be made into blankets and pieces of clothing. The skin that can be tanned into leather, turned into boots and shoes. The bone that can be whittled into implements and tools. It's a huge payoff. So the first thing I realized is that the why and the what of this task, the why and the what, are crystal clear to these hunters. That's why it's worth it. There's self-interest at work here. When I go back to a word that Abby used earlier. Self-interest. I get why it matters and what I have to do to get it. But a little more thinking on this, a little more meditation. I can imagine that these folks got together before the hunt and talked to each other about how they were going to work together. Right? Who's going to carry the bow and arrow? Who's going to chase the animals? Who will do what job? So there's not just a why and a what, but a very clear who. And finally, I got this image in my head that this is a prehistoric flip chart, that somebody stood up in a cave and said, let's sketch this out. It's like you might do with a play in American football, right? The X's and the O's. Somebody sketched this, that they had a plan, they had a process. Not just for how to do it, but imagine they've done it before, they'll do it again. There was some learning they were taking from each time they did this. They recorded it so it wouldn't be forgotten. There was a why, a clear what, the who was clear, and the how was clear. So think about it, another way to think about it is that this collaboration is driven by what, at least in American English, we call the what's in it for me, the with 'em. Just another way to say self-interest. They knew that they were going to get something important out of this. It was a compelling case for collaboration. Now look, they might have done a haka before they went out and hunted these animals. I don't know. But I'm going to guess it's not the dance that would have made them effective hunters. It was what was driving them from inside. It was this enlightened self-interest, is the term that's sometimes used. So how do you get people in this day and age to collaborate? What's it take to unlock that power and potential? And there's a word I'm thinking of. It's
simply irresistible. Simply irresistible.
How do we make this will stop? Thank you, Robert Palmer, ladies and gentlemen. The great Robert, the late great Robert Palmer. Thank you. How do you make collaboration an irresistible proposition for those? Now think about it. When you're at work, what do? You do what you know how to do. You do the work your boss put in front of you. You do the work that you're accountable for, that you're paid for. So at the time I undertook this work, so I want to talk now about a little bit about the research. I worked between 2008 and 2010 with about 120 senior teams at Mars. I had interview data, I had survey data, and I had observational data on all of them. And what they wanted me to do was create a management development program that would actually enable managers to make their teams more effective. And all of the traditional things I was looking at, all the conventional wisdom about team building, just wasn't working for me. I'd been using these things myself for 2 years, and I wasn't seeing outcomes that were worthy. The thing that struck me the most, and as I dug through this data, I have to say I was not encouraged. I wasn't seeing any strong themes. But this one thing struck me finally, after walking around my house for 2 or 3 weeks thinking about it. A phrase like this came up over and over again. Carlos, we know we should collaborate. We've seen the posters on the wall. We know, but we just don't. Baffled me. How could people who know what's expected of them, smart people, well-paid people, people with advanced degrees, know what should be done and not do it? Simple. They did the work that was in front of them. They did what they were paid to do, which was primarily to deliver the objectives they were given, right? Now, I get collaboration is risky. Well, we're not all being charged by ungulates, but it's okay. Still, it's risky. So why is it risky? It slows us down. As soon as I have to engage with somebody else, it's going to take more time. Also, they may dilute my really good thinking. I've got 2 master's degrees. I'm a smart guy. I don't want to mess that up with somebody who's not on my level. Also, I want credit. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm an ambitious person. And if we start teamwork, where's the credit go? And also, my boss needs to know who to blame if things don't go well. There are a lot of reasons to avoid it. And yet, there's value in working together. We know it drives innovation. We know it unlocks all kinds of power in an organization, but how do we get it? Enlightened self-interest. We get it by making the proposition to collaborate as clear and as tangible as the other work we have to do. We get it by making collaboration feel like just another thing I can achieve and tick off and be proud of. So let's give you an example of a team I worked with at Mars, where they were struggling with this idea of teamwork. So we have a group called Mars Retail. Now you may have seen an M&M store somewhere. There's one in London, New York, Las Vegas, and we're soon to reopen in Shanghai. That's the flagship. Then we've got the M&M's custom print business. I don't know if you've seen these, but you can go online and upload a picture of yourself or a loved one or a logo, and you can have it custom printed on an M&M. Yeah, right? Pretty cool. 2 other pieces of work. There's an online store, which mimics the brick and mortar stores. That's the 3rd business. And the 4th business is we sell, M&Ms come in many more colors than you see in a bag of M&Ms. And we sell those to other retailers. And they're these big transparent tubes full of these wonderful colors you can find in candy dealers and elsewhere. So those are the 4 lines of business. 3 of the 4 were struggling. And these 4 pieces were brought together in a haphazard way somewhat, but together over a 2 or 3 year period. 3 of the businesses were in turnaround. We're trying to get them to make more money and to grow faster. And consequently, they had a lot to do. They had a lot of projects and initiatives that were meant to fix the underlying issues of the business. There were so many projects, these guys didn't know where to start. Not just guys, but men and women together. And they invited me in to help them figure out how collaboration could support this. And so they had developed this motto. Mottos are good, slogans are fun. Their motto was better before bigger. They had declared to Mars Corporate, we've got to fix things, we've got to get better before we grow. And Mars Corporate had said, okay, you've got 2 years. The problem was there was so much to do. And which of it required collaboration. So all we did was simple. I gave everybody a pad of Post-it notes. I said to each of these 8 leaders, on a single Post-it note sheet, write 1 project or initiative you're responsible for, that you have to deliver. Everybody wrote them out. We ended up with 65 or 70 individual Post-it notes on a wall. And then I asked the question, of those 70 items, which ones absolutely require the full collaboration of all 8 of you? We ended up with about 6. Everything else we decided was either collaboration of subgroups, so 2 or 3 people, or the work that would get done by individuals most efficiently. Great, then I said, fine, this is a good start, still a lot of work, and they were looking at this thinking, it's still overwhelming. What has to get started tomorrow? What can wait until the second half of the year? What can go into next year? So we put some sequencing to it. We got it down to 3 projects that the total team would focus on. That's where the teamwork would be. They weren't going out on a ropes course. They weren't doing a Myers-Briggs. They said, we're going to work together. They committed from here as individuals. They got passionate about it. It connected to their self-interest. They felt, this is good. I can believe in this. It's going to serve me. I forgot to put Robert Palmer up there when we clapped for him, so there he is. It's a bit late. But anyway, that's all we did. We simplified the collaborative effort to things that felt doable, manageable, and achievable. And suddenly this team came to life. So I talked to this gentleman who's running this business earlier this month. I said, how'd it go? Because at the end of the year, there were some scares about their online business. He said, we had the best year we've ever had. In fact, M&M's Retail was, of the global chocolate business for Mars, which I think is about $20 billion of revenue. They're tiny by comparison, but of all those various businesses, this was the only segment that actually exceeded expectations for the year. And so I had to ask him, so to what degree would you say the work we did together made a difference? And the answer surprised me and pleased me. He said, oh, it didn't make a difference, it was the difference. We could not have navigated this together and had the success we had if you hadn't helped us get the focus, get people connected to the work at a visceral level. Collaboration was not an abstract concept, it wasn't a poster on the wall, it was a way we were going to get things done. And that's the approach they've adopted. Now, it's not hard. I've been working on this for a few years. I'm still learning about the process. But it's my belief, it's my experience, in fact, that if you can clarify for each member of your team, whatever your team may be, whether it's 8 people or 18, what's in it for me? Why is it important? Who absolutely needs to work with whom, and who doesn't need to work with anybody? Let those individuals go be wonderful and special. That's good too. And finally, what's the how? How will we do it and learn as we go? If you can do that and apply that to the teams you're a part of, it is my firm belief that you can unlock power and the potential of a real, authentic teamwork. Thank you very much.